Now, Nigeria's manufacturing PMI manages index, that's a gauge for manufacturing sentiments, declined about zero point 0.7 points just last month on forex volatility and social unrest in the eastern and northern parts of Nigeria, making it the first of its kind. Well, the index which declined from 50.3 to 49.6 points in the month of October mirrored across three of the five sub-indices, suggesting a weaker output growth, a slowing of new orders and higher input cost due to material shortages, supply chain issues and rising commodity prices. It will interest you to know that PMI index had hit 51 points in May but dropped continuously till it hit 48 points in July and showing signs of strained recovery as it ended the third quarter of the year with 49.6 index points and 50.3 index points between the months of August and September, respectively. However, experts believe that if issues around forex availability and accessibility are not addressed promptly, many of the manufacturing companies in the country will fold up, which will consequently collapse the sector and affect the job creation potential there. Joining me now to discuss this and much more virtually, I have the Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Dr. Segun Ajayi-Kadiri. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Dr. Ajayi-Kadiri, in the last few months, the big picture remains unchanged. Now, we are seeing strong demand still persisting, irrespective of the challenges we are having in terms of bottlenecks, supply bottlenecks, and a whole lot more. But we cannot push aside issues of supply chain disruptions and forex accessibility. How does this, in your own view, limit our growth trajectory when we are looking at the manufacturing sector and the recovery process we'll likely see in the coming months?
Well, thank you again for having me. The challenges you raise, of course, impact negatively on the growth trajectory of the manufacturing. Have been more or less shattered all plans for 2020. However, these challenges that we have continued to witness has limited the capacity of the sector to quickly recover. We are looking forward to a situation where all the impediments that accompanied COVID-19 will have been removed by positive government action along the lines that we have recommended. So, through what you said, the challenges are still with us, and we are looking forward to government accelerating the various measures that have been put in place so that we can continue to see incremental growth that will allow the sector to rebound.
The impact of infrastructure deficit on the manufacturing sector is also one that is quite difficult to quantify if we're going to put things mildly, because this costs the manufacturing sector much more. But the global conversation now we're looking at is cost-cutting measures. To what extent do you see us now having a reduction in the operational cost of manufacturers? We need to also look at this because at the end of the day, this high cost or inflationary pressure is then transmitted or transferred to the consumer who is buying the made in Nigeria goods. Now, the conversation once more that we know is that imported products are largely cheaper than what we produce home. Hence, we cannot necessarily push the agenda of buy the made in Nigeria if we still have these elements here. How do we bring down the cost of our production here in the country?
Yes, thank you. The concerns you raised is quite apt, and that has been what we have pointed attention to. When Nigeria was moving up in its ranking of ease of doing business, we did indicate that it is not enough for you to find it a little bit easier to do business, but you have to find it inexpensive to do business. You have to be incentivized to engage in business and be profitable. So the cost of doing business has placed the manufacturing sector in Nigeria in a non-competitive position. And this becomes more worrisome that we have entered into the implementing phase of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, that all our neighbors that do not have the same cost structure with us will be put in an advantage position over us. So it is hardly possible for us to survive with a high cost, and requiring patronage of made in Nigeria product will have to be supported by government policies aimed at driving costs in the easily identifiable areas. For instance, the issues at the ports. It should not take you 3 weeks to bring in your raw materials. At the same time, electricity supply does not have to be this expensive and non-available. Interest rates that you charge manufacturers should not be high. If it's higher above those ones that operate in countries where imported products are coming in, there is no way those products will not be cheaper than those ones that are made in Nigeria. Yet, it is the Nigerian companies that pay taxes to government. It is the Nigerian companies that ensure that people are kept in their job places. It is the Nigerian industries that are able to assess technology that will improve the general knowledge base of the country. So the cost of doing business has placed the sector in a situation where our growth patterns, especially post-COVID-19, has been excruciatingly slow. We had expected that government policy will match our drive to recover all the lost grants during the COVID era of 2020. For instance, the Manufacturers' Confidence Index only indicated a marginal improvement of between 52.9% in the first quarter to 54% index point in the second one. We had expected that we would have moved far beyond that now to something 60 and 65%, which were the pre-COVID-19 thresholds.
Dr. Kadiri, now also looking at the fact that we have shortages now in terms of material, the raw materials we have. You made mention of the fact that the reality remains that we still have to import some of our raw materials. That also largely increases the inflationary pressure we have to expend on, especially looking at how the Naira is also trading. At subnational levels now, at areas of within comparative advantages, how do you think we can now begin to redefine the context of sourcing for local materials to help the local manufacturing base to thrive? It's difficult for us to still see how blessed we are, yet we still have to import raw materials. Do you understand the sentiment?
Yes, I think in a way we have to look at it from two sides. One, there are raw materials that we can source locally. And to that extent, we must continue to make efforts, government side and the company side, for us to ramp up production in those areas so that we'll be able to source our raw materials locally. That is on the one side. And we are, MAN, for instance, is in cooperation with the Raw Material Research and Development Council to be able to develop those identified raw materials that we could source locally. MAN already initiated resource-based industrialization, where our members are advised to backward integrate, and we are collaborating with different government agencies to achieve that. On the other side, we have those raw materials that are not commercially viable to be produced within the country. There are also those that require high level of technology that to produce that are not available in the country. And there are also known areas in the world where raw materials are produced cheaply. And most countries normally source from those areas. And that is the critical area we are speaking about forest allocation to the manufacturing sector, such that they will be able to access it more easily and at reasonable cost, so that we'll be able to bring in those raw materials in order to produce in the country, pay taxes to government, employ people, and generally improve contribution of manufacturing sector to the gross domestic product. So we have to be able to balance the two. Whilst we recognize and our members have readily supported MAN initiative in this regard to source our raw materials locally, there is need for us to emphasize the fact that when you source your raw materials from outside of the country, it's not necessarily a disadvantage. It is only what to do with it when it arrives here, or how cheaply you are able to get it, so that you will be able to produce and reflect the economy. There are a lot of efforts going into sourcing of raw materials locally, but you know that is also affected by the local conditions, the insecurity that we have in the country that has not enabled, for instance, those in the food and beverage sector to be able to access their raw materials that are in far-flung places because of the insecurity and the high cost. And also the bottleneck at the ports that does not even allow you, when you produce and you want to export, to be able to take your things to the port to export. Again, the rate at which you are going to borrow, because when you source your raw materials locally, those who are producing it also go to the same banks that we are saying the interest rate is high to source for money to be able to develop those local raw materials. So there has to be a conscious government effort to accelerate all the conversations we'll be having about backward integrating.
Dr. Ajayi Kadri, now there are conversations around the 2022 Finance Bill. Considerations are being drawn up, conversations are going on to see what incentives we can have within that space. But looking at waivers now, the future of manufacturing in Nigeria, in the short term, let's draw up a plan for the year 2022. What sort of waivers would you like to see, or incentives being put in place for the manufacturing sector? There's the argument about having more free trade zones where you have shared resources. There are other arguments being put forward. But now, in a holistic sense, what sort of waivers and incentives do you think we need to have that would help propel the manufacturing sector in the country to have more investments?
Okay, concerning the Finance Act, I think that we have always had these fiscal policy measures of government that come in, year out. And so what is just being done now is to maybe put it in a form that it will be more sustainable, and so that we'll be able to plan. And so it's coming in an act. There's still a lot of debate as to whether we should actually enact such things in a dynamic business environment. But that is not the subject for discussion. I think the manufacturing sector is actually enjoying quite a number of incentives and so on. Albeit the fact that you are not able to drive it to fruition. In some cases, they are bedeviled by unnecessary, I must say, government interjections. For instance, the export expansion grant has been disrupted severally, and it is a very difficult, because of bureaucratic bottlenecks, to be able to access those incentives. But currently, the major concern of manufacturers about the Finance Act is in some areas where you have a looming increase in excise duty. Now, excise duty is not a tax that is paid by manufacturers. It is paid by the end user. That's the average consumer. But you will agree with me that the disposable income of the average Nigerian has dwindled badly. So if we now place it within that context, and then you increase the cost price, because the manufacturer is going to, the consumer is going to pay this excise. If you put it on top of what he's paying at the moment, it leaves him in a worse position. The way it affects us is that our sales volumes will go lower. The way it will affect government is that government will not be able to collect more company income tax, and the same way manufacturers may not be able to meet their running costs, and we may have to consider downsizing in order to be able to stay afloat. So at the end of the day, government has to balance the effect. Are you going to take
Dr. Segun Ajayi Kadri, wrapping up your thoughts there, let's just look at, in a sum now, the area of value addition. How do you see things also taking shape?
Yes, I think in terms of our commitment to backward integration, we have been able to get many of our members adding value to our raw materials and ensuring that we do not export those in their raw form. So there has been backward integration, for instance, in the dairy industries. We've had it more in the food and beverage industry, and even in the automobile. Unfortunately, that is being shortchanged by the recent reduction in the cost of importation of fully built vehicles. But the backward integration efforts are the ones that are allowing us to add value directly to the raw materials that are being produced, so that we'll be able to get higher income from our exports.
Thank you very much for your time on the show today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Dr. Segun Ajayi-Kadiri.
Thank you for making me a doctor. I'm simply a mister, but I enjoyed it while it lasted.
Thank you very much.